All right, so now we're getting some really, really interesting stuff about plants. Um, One thing that's super interesting about plants that most people don't get is that plants have behaviors. Yeah, they got structures. We all knew they had structures, but they've got behaviors. Plants do stuff. They actively do stuff. That's not like they're thinking about doing stuff, but they're responding to their environment in ways that we don't normally think about because they're not jumping up and moving around. So I'm going to go through the different structures in the plant, and then we're going to get into how those structures help the plant do stuff. And of course, we're going to start with the leaf. You guys all know what leaves are because you are minimally observant. Um, Leaves are going to develop at the very, very tip of a shoot. So you have meristematic tissue producing a shoot. At the tip of that shoot, you're going to get leaf growth. Leaves are adapted to maximize photosynthesis. And we've got two broad types. We've got the scales of say, a conifer, and then we got these big, broad, flat leaves. Now, as we talked about before, how are scales adapted to maximize photosynthesis? What do they allow a conifer to do?
They're like hollow tubes, and they sort of have air in them, and then the outer surface is just the chlorophyll tissue.
Right. So you've got this sort of hollow tube with green on the outsides, chlorophytic tissue that allows them to have photosynthesis occurring year round. That's compared to these guys over here. They've got these big, broad, flat leaves. How does that help maximize photosynthesis? More so, when in doubt, right? Bio 102, more surface area. More surface area you have, the more photosynthesis can occur. Downside of these big, broad, flat leaves is in the winter, that surface area is a hindrance to them. That surface area means they will freeze. So instead of freezing and dying during winter, what they do is they go into what's called senescence. They basically stop sending sugars out there. The leaves go to sleep. This chlorophyll gets pulled out, and the leaves drop. So whether you're looking at a conifer leaf or, say, an oak leaf, you're looking at an organism that's supremely adapted to its environment. The other organ we'll look at are roots. I love talking about roots. Roots typically have three zones to them. They have the meristematic zone down here, which is also known as the root cap. The root cap's sort of mature cells that provides a little helmet for the meristematic tissue where you have mitosis going on. That meristematic tissue is a, go figure, apical meristem. It's growing up or down, in this case, down. Right behind the meristematic tissue, you have the zone of elongation where the cells, not trying to trick you, get longer. Yeah, they elongate there. And then, yet another aptly named zone is the zone of maturation where they mature. They start to differentiate into what their adult forms will be like. We have lots of different types of roots. You've got prop roots, fibrous roots, tap roots, and my favorite, the nematophore. You also have aerial roots and a few others, but these are the big, broad kinds I want to talk about. First up, we got prop roots. Prop roots you'll see on corn, you'll see them on tomatoes. They grow off of the stem and then down into the soil. So not only do you have a root growing straight down, like a tap root, you're also going to have roots off the side of the plant to stabilize it. These prop roots don't suck up water. Their whole job is hold the plant up, prop it up. This is very useful in plants that have a shallow root system. You might have fibrous roots. Fibrous roots are very, very thin. There are tons of them, and they expand out through the soil. These are they're primarily to increase surface area for absorbing water. You could have a taproot is a single, very, very long root that grows deep underground. The taproot's useful for taking in water when there might be less water around. There's this analogy from my childhood. My parents had a house with a well. I don't know how many of you guys have wells on your house, but basically you dig a well down and you've got water there. You're not getting it from the city. We were at the bottom of a hill, so our well was, I think my dad forced our well to be dug 60 feet deeper than anybody else's well. So he paid extra for that because he was big on having his own well. Nobody else had a well like that. Everybody else was on top of the hill, and their well was significantly above our well level. Well, everything was fine until a drought. And then the drought hit, and people's wells started going dry. But not ours. Our well was deeper than everybody else's well. We could still access water that they couldn't. So that was like my dad's finest moment right there, was laughing at the neighbors who could not take showers. The tap root works similar to that. Whereas a fibrous root system is very, very shallow, it is going to be highly influenced by local drought conditions. Taproot can go deep enough that it's able to get water out of the soil when those fibrous roots have lost all the water around them. Does that make sense? Yes.
Is a carrot a taproot?
A carrot is a taproot. And again, taproots like carrots are also good for storing energy.
So the carrot is really, it is a root.
It is a root, yes.
Okay.
Yep. If you were to pull a dandelion out of the ground by its root, it will look just like a carrot. Well, except it won't be orange; it'll be white. Why are carrots orange? It's they've got carotene. We'll get into that in a second. Yes. Question? No. And my favorite of the nematophores. If you go out into a mangrove or you go out near the beach, you're going to see lots of what look like sticks where water typically flows. If you go near a creek, you're going to find these sticks coming out of the ground. And everybody always thinks, dead grass or dead trees. But what they actually are the roots of all these other trees around coming out of the ground because they act like snorkels. The roots still need to undergo aerobic cellular respiration to grow. You can drown a plant, especially if the roots are constantly underwater. But these plants have gotten around that by sticking up little tubes to pull pull oxygen in order to allow cellular respiration. So you got tap roots, prop roots, fibrous roots, and nematophores. We've talked about leaves. We've talked about roots. Let's talk about how plants behave now. Because plants definitely have behaviors. They move. They respond to their environment. They respond to stimuli. They do stuff. They've got internal stimuli and external stimuli. Internal stimuli will be hormones. Just like you have hormones that tell your body what to do, plants have hormones that tell their bodies what to do. They control development, growth, and behavior. And there are two hormones in particular I'm interested in talking to you guys about. One type are called the auxins. Auxins cause shoots to grow. High levels of auxins cause shoots to grow. I always remember that because it's like auxin has an A, and you can make that A an arrow, so auxins make them grow up. Here you can see the wild type. That's the plant with no extra auxins. This one has IAA, which is an auxin, and you'll see that it produces multiple shoots. You can induce different behaviors in plants, like what type of structures will grow based on what hormones you subject it to. Auxins lead to what's called phototropism. That is, you guys probably know plants will follow the light. They tend to orient themselves to where the light is. Basically, plants that, let's see if I got this straight. When you have light coming in, a plant is going to secrete cytokinins on the opposite side and auxins, so they begin to stretch out the cells, causing it to bend. You move the light, the auxins are produced in different cells, and it shifts in a different direction. Cytokinins are the flip side of auxins. Cytokinins cause roots to grow. They increase the rate of cell division. So you got auxins make plants grow up, cytokinins produce roots. You should see an assay here that has a lot of cytokinins on over here, a lot of auxins over here. So cytokinins, sort of that center one right there. You'll notice it's got smaller shoot network, but a much deeper root network. By changing the ratio of auxins to cytokinins, you can encourage the plant to grow new tissues, roots or shoots. So auxins make the plant grow up. Cytokinins typically produce lots of roots. We combine this with the fact that plant cells are pluripotent, and that's where you can get new biotechnology called plant cloning. Basically, you could take a cell of any plant. You're going to subject it to auxins first. If you put a plant cell with a bunch of auxins, what will happen? What do auxins cause? Lots of shoots. So you take a single cell, you subject it to auxins, and you begin to grow a shoot from that through mitosis. Now you have a shoot. What does that shoot need in order to be a full plant? You got the stem. What else do you need for a plant? Roots. So what do you take that stem and do? Put it on a cytokinin. That will cause roots to grow. Does that make sense? In this way, you can take one high-value plant. So when we do genetic engineering in the plant lab, we are making one plant. We're not making thousands of plants. One plant. We'll spend thousands of dollars to make a single plant. Then once we have that one plant with the genes that we like, we can take it and cut it into as many pieces as we want, and then grow those into individual plants through a process of cloning where we take auxins first and then subject them to cytokinins, and boom, you can make millions upon millions upon millions of this very high value plant. Here, what am I growing here? These are, just looking at them, I forget, is this daylily? No, I think that's miscanthus. So basically, if you took a biofuel crop, miscanthus, it's called switchgrass, a genetically modified switchgrass that can grow on soil that nothing else can grow on, and you make one of them, it could cost you $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, one plant. But then you take that one plant, and it will cost you a fraction of a cent to produce one, because now you're making, you scaled up the operation. So you have a very high value plant that you're producing en masse, so you can get it out to the fields. Farmers can make money on it. In this case, we can now have a new biofuel crop. It's a large investment for the first plant, very, very, very small investment for any subsequent plant. So those are responding to their internal stimuli, their hormones. You can also respond to external stimuli, what's going on outside of them. How long the light's there, the photoperiod. If you touched it, if you touch plants, they don't like that. Plants are like people in that regard. If there's a flood or if there's drought, they'll respond. If an herbivore tries to attack it, they'll respond. So first off, we'll talk about photoperiod. Photoperiod is the amount of time light is on the plant. Plants respond to the amount of light present, more so than they respond to temperature. A lot of times people think, oh, winter's coming, plants think it's cold, so they start to close down. It's actually they're responding to how much light is in the sky at any given point. Basically, you induce fruits and flowers to grow based on the light present. So this is a short day, long night plant. During long light periods, they're going to have vegetative growth. During long day periods. During short day periods, long nights, so say in the winter, that will encourage them to produce flowers. Think of a Christmas cactus. Short light, long night, they'll start making flowers. You can trick these plants because you're a jerk. By turning on the light in the middle of the night for 5 minutes, a flash of light for 5 minutes will reset their clock. So if you do a long night with a short amount of light in the middle, a long night with a short amount of light in the middle, a flash, it'll trick the plants and make them think that it's actually a short amount, a short night, a long day. This is how you can get, and how farmers, especially flower farmers, have flowers growing all year round, is by controlling the amount of light in their greenhouses. It's why you'll see greenhouses like with lights on at night sometimes to trick the plants into blooming or producing fruit when they shouldn't. It's because of this a lot of us are able to get fruit year round that would normally only be available in summer. Plants respond to gravity. They are always going to move away from the source of gravity. That's how seeds know which way to grow. They've got these structures called stadoliths. Their whole job is to figure out what's up and what's down. If you put a seed in soil, even if you put the seed in upside down, the plant will right itself so the shoots go up and the roots go down. Turns out, if you were to take a plant into space, they do their best to find gravity. Wherever the strongest source of gravity is, that's what they'll orient toward. They respond. This is called thigmotropism, which to me, honest to God, sounds like a Dr. Seuss word. But thigmotropism is a response to touch. These plants, you may see this with tendrils on, say, a cucumber plant. It will send out small little shoots that are looking to touch something. When they touch an object, it might be a wooden stake or it might be a tree or something. The water potential, the amount of water in that shoot, begins to change and it starts to curl. Basically, it starts to wrap around the structure, whatever it may be. Some of these cells, the same cells are responsible for phototropism, for moving the plant toward light. During a flood, some plants will produce pneumatophores so they can breathe. That's a response to the environment. In a drought, it's hard for a plant to sort of adapt because they need water. Plants are entirely sort of motivated by water. If they don't have water, if they lose about 50% of their water weight, they will die. You can't bring them back. So some plants have adapted to, during times of drought, secrete a lot more wax. What's the point of wax? Right, it holds water in. It's hydrophobic. And then if a plant is attacked, it can produce a whole bunch of secondary metabolites. These secondary metabolites are going to attack intruders. For instance, when an herbivore, like a deer, is wandering through and eating certain plants, those plants will begin to produce, well, the first plant that it eats begins to basically scream in plant language. It releases some chemicals into the air. That tells the plants that are downwind, the wind blows it across other plants, to start producing poison. The plants that are farther downwind, now they've got this poison, if the deer was to eat those plants, the deer would either get sick or die. Because of that, deer in turn have changed their behaviors so that they only ever start eating things that are upwind. They don't, if the wind blows on them, they head toward where the wind is blowing from, so that they don't have to obviously get sick. Does that make sense? Secondary metabolites are very, very strong chemicals that a plant uses in order to protect itself. We humans are actually kind of dumb when it comes to secondary metabolites. I used to have a whole lecture on them because I think they're so cool. Think of, does anybody drink tea? Heck, you could drink coffee. Caffeine is a secondary metabolite. It was produced in order to stop organisms from eating that plant. Because what happens if you guys ever eaten pure coffee beans? Okay, what happens when you eat pure coffee beans? What happens to your heart rate? Yeah, it really increases. Poppies. Do you guys know what poppies are used for?
Opium.
Oh yeah, it could be used for opium. We could totally talk about that, I guess. Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for going there, Nick.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about opium. I was gonna say, you guys ever seen The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
But
Used for dye.
yeah, dyes. I was okay. Let's. So here's the deal. We'll talk about opium. In the Wizard of Oz, they what's her name? Dorothy fell asleep in a big field full of poppies, and it follows that whole opium example. Because what opium does, what poppies do, is they slow down your heart rate. Literally, if you eat too many, if you an herbivore eat too many poppies, you're going to fall asleep, if not die. Your heart rate slows down. That makes you really easy prey for predators around, and in turn helps those plants survive. Um, oh, let's see. So teas are, like I said, a way that we use secondary metabolites. So we take in these secondary metabolites. We are the only species I know of that take secondary metabolites from plants and we're like, yes, please, we'd like some more. We distill down this poison and we drink it ourselves in order to change our own chemistry. Um, Jalapenos, hot peppers. They produce a secondary metabolite, capsaicin. You guys ever heard of that? So basically, capsaicin is the heat in peppers. Yes?
So all of this fun stuff that plants produce, we just sort of like microdose it for fun.
That's exactly what we do. We microdose it for fun. Um, Peppers do not want to be eaten by herbivores. You'll notice that if you have a pepper plant, a jalapeno plant or something, squirrels and stuff tend to avoid them. They don't like grab it and like, I'm going to have this hot pepper. In fact, so I got a quick story. Okay, so I will keep you a little longer to take, so I'm going to tell you my story. And I'm allowed because, like you said, I'm the teacher. I had a garden. I have a garden. I'm very proud of my garden. It was a really nice garden. So I started off with this garden, and it was at imagine if you will, my house. You don't know what my house looks like, so imagine I don't know, a kindergarten drawn house, and I have a window in the second floor. I'm looking down at my garden in the yard, marveling at how well it's doing. When I say, if I get out of the shower, I look out the window of my bathroom and I'm like, there's my garden. It looks so good. And sure enough, out there's a deer eating it. If a deer eats the meristem of the tomato, you're not going to get that tomato plant back growing up. It will grow outward but never back up. So I was like, I started yelling at the deer, and the deer looked at me, ate my garden some more. I threw a bar of soap at it, but I'm weak, so it didn't go very far. Yeah. It's what was in my hand. I could have thrown a toothbrush. So so I got frustrated. The next year I was like, I got this. I'm going to put this garden on my deck. And my wife's like, you're going to put the garden on the deck? So I put the garden on my deck. Bunch of grow kits, the boxes and that. Self-watering system. I'm so proud of myself because there's no deer that's going to get 20 feet up in the air to get to my garden. Makes sense, right? I'm set. I then next year I look out the door and I'm like, there is my garden. Behold how awesome it is. And I kid you not, there's a squirrel out there. Because squirrels can get 20 feet up. And that squirrel looks at me and picks a tomato. And I was like, you better not. And the squirrel's like, and takes a bite. And then, just to piss me off, drops the tomato. Right? And I was like, you suck, squirrel. Squirrel scampers along. Right? Picks another tomato, takes a bite, drops it. So then I go running outside, like shaking my fist like an old man. Get out of my garden, squirrel. And the squirrel sort of leaves, but then comes back. I got so mad. And I was stewing on this. Like, I was really mad about this. So my wife looks at me. I look at my wife and was like, I'm a biologist. And that's when my wife's like, gets the cue of, I'm leaving. She's leaving. She's like, I don't care what you do. You just make sure it's clean before I get home. I'm going to take the kids to my parents' house for the weekend. You deal with whatever you have to deal with. So she left. She took the kids. And that's when I get to work. Science, right? I go to the one place in town where you can get all the science supplies you will ever need, and it's Walmart. You go into Walmart, there is aisles of things that could be potentially biologically weaponized. So I'm thinking to myself, squirrels don't like capsaicin. Squirrels hate capsaicin. I'm going to spray my garden with capsaicin, but I need to extract it. So I go in, and And I got a little cart, and I'm in the spice aisle, and I'm looking for all the spiciest things possible. I'm like, so here's some like some red cayenne pepper. Here's this, and I ran into a friend of mine. His name's Chip. He's a chef, and I was like, Chip, and he looks at me and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Well, I'm getting ready to do. I'm going to make this stuff." And he's like, "Are you making chili?" And I was like, "No, I'm not making chili. I'm going to extract capsaicin." And then I gave him like this 10-minute lecture on secondary metabolites, which his eyes glazed over. He's like, "Well, look, if you want something hot, up front I saw some fresh habaneros and some ghost peppers." And I was like, "Thanks, Chip." So I would push in the aisle. So I'm like, "Good, freaking kill this thing." I go there. I'm like, ghost peppers, habanero peppers, jalapeno peppers, anything I could find that was hot in the cart. I'm rolling up now. I'm thinking to myself, this girl's going to die. I'm start checking out. The self-checkout lane, which is what I prefer, was way too long. And there was a freshly open lane. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to the freshly open lane. And I start putting all the stuff on the belt. And the lady asks me, she's like, "So you making chili?" I was like, "No, I'm going to." Yes, I'm making chili because I don't like talking to people. Um, I get this stuff home, and I'm so excited. I take a blender. I take all of the peppers, and I throw them in a blender. First things first, throw all the peppers in a blender. Get a nice little bit of water, nice slurry of brown, disgusting peppers. Then I take that slurry, and I need to extract the metabolite. So here's how it works, and partly how it could also work if you were to do any other sort of extraction. Um, you take that super hot that pepper solution. If you guys, anybody was here on the last test when I was you saw me extracting stuff then too. You put it into boiling water. Capsaicin is stable at boiling temperatures. So I've broken apart the cells. I put it in boiling water in order to extract the capsaicin. So now I was safe though. I put on safety glasses because I was like, this is gonna hurt. Because basically what I'm making is concentrated. Say it again. Yeah, concentrated pepper spray. So I put on safety glasses, and I'm like, boil, boil, boil. It starts bubbling in that way that only a bog can do. It's like, bloop, that sort of thing. I get this stuff. I put it into a centrifuge. The role of a centrifuge is to separate out what's heavy from what's light. It spins really fast. You know what I'm talking about? So eventually, if you put the solution into a centrifuge, the heavy pepper part will go to the bottom, and you'll get a liquid filled with capsaicin. Yes?
Why do you own it?
I don't own a centrifuge. So what I did was I took a 2-liter bottle, and I filled it up with this pepper solution, this pepper mixture, and tied it to a rope and swung it as fast as I could over my head. And that separated it out. Then I have what's called the supernatant at top. Oh, by the way, turns out when you're making concentrated pepper spray, if you have safety glasses on, it's great for if it splashes in your eye, but that steam has lots of capsaicin, so I'm crying. It's going right through those safety glasses. But I'm going to get the freaking squirrel. So then I take this mixture. I put it into a spray bottle. I go outside. I spray all my plants. That's not enough. No, that's not enough. Because then I think to myself, there's probably still some capsaicin left in that pepper solution. So I lay the pepper gunk all over the rails on my deck, thinking to myself, because this is when you go crazy, this is what you do. I put myself into a mind of a squirrel. And I said, okay, there I am, happy little squirrel. I'm going to go eat one of Chris's tomatoes because I suck. And then I'm going to bound along the railing where I'll get my little paws in that mixture. I'm going to go and pick a tomato and take a bite. Oh no, it's too hot. There must be capsaicin all over this tomato for some reason. I'll drop that, but I've got to clear off my tongue. How am I going to do that? I'm going to use my cute little freaking paws. Wipe it off. But now my paws are covered with pepper. That's right. I totally went up that squirrel. I go to bed happy with a job well done. I don't know how much money I spent on that. No idea. It was worth it though. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning. I rub my eyes, realize there's still pepper on my hands. Start crying. Go outside. Look at my garden. 3 dead squirrels. Yep. I'm not saying I killed them. I'm saying they might have eaten something. Yeah. It's okay. I did not do what I wanted to do, which was then put them on a pike in the garden, arms splayed out, because I thought my wife's not going to like that. Yes, Nick, what can I do for you?
Well, I've heard squirrel meat is kind of yummy, and So if you actually get
It's
the
true.
squirrel to just eat a lot of capsaicin, that's kind of like
You're making it a
marinating
nice
on
hot.
pizza.
Yeah. So there you go. See, I could have, but I didn't.
Well,
I just had to get rid of. Anyways, that was my big secondary metabolites can help you. If you understand this stuff, you can mess with squirrels.
so you know castor plant and castor beans?
Yes,
That would work for them.
it would. It totally would.
Okay.
Questions?